You ever wonder what happens when the wrong person thinks they own the room? Let me tell you about the day everything flipped inside out in a place where silence used to be the safest choice, at least for people like me. It started with Captain Vera Lawson, but back then, nobody knew her name. All they saw was a black woman in a blood-stained red blazer, hands cuffed behind her back, hair pinned up, already bruised and swelling, walking down the hallway with two officers on either side, heels clicking like a metronome, not hurried. She didn't hang her head. She didn't lift her chin either. She just carried herself as if this whole thing was a test she'd already studied for. Inside the interrogation room, the air was sharp with chemicals and ego. Lieutenant Greg Fallon was waiting, legs spread, chewing gum loud enough to drown out your nerves, smirk twitching every time she looked his way. He didn't bother to hide the contempt, slapped a file down so hard the cup rattled. Impersonating an officer, he spat, eyes flicking over her shoulder, her wrist, looking for a name tag or a badge. There wasn't one. That's when his game face really slid into place. Fallon liked people off balance, especially if he thought they'd never push back. She didn't give him anything, didn't say her name, didn't ask for water, didn't even flinch as he shoved her into the chair. She just surveyed the room, slow and silent, like she was making note of the exits in case of fire. Officer Mark Dwyer, the youngest in the room, leaned against the wall and watched her with a mix of curiosity and worry, like maybe he realized this wasn't going to be a routine shakedown. Fallon, meanwhile, hated the silence. He leaned in, elbows on steel, eyes mean. You think you're in charge? In here, you're nothing. Then, almost out of a movie, he growled, Here, I'm the law. Like he needed to remind everyone, maybe himself most of all. That moment felt heavy, almost ridiculous, but nobody laughed. She still didn't react, just calmly fixed a loose button on her cuff with fingers stained by old blood. Even when he spat his gum onto the floor, she never looked away. Dwyer shifted, unsure if he should say something, but Fallon shot him a look that kept him pinned to the wall. Then came the questions: name, address, what were you doing, why were you in the restricted area? No Miranda rights, no search warrant. Fallon never bothered with rules when he thought he could get away with skipping them. She finally spoke. Quiet, but the kind of quiet that makes you lean in. You sure you know who I am? The air changed. For a second, Dwyer actually took a half step forward. Fallon froze then, as if stung. He raised his hand and slapped her hard enough to echo off the walls. Blood at the corner of her mouth. Still, she just set her head straight again, eyes locked on him, and asked, What are you going to do now? Calm as you please. Fallon didn't answer. He grabbed her bag, dumped the contents across the table, nothing but a folder, a cheap phone, and a small leather case. Dwyer, uncomfortable, finally managed, Do you want a lawyer? She shook her head. Not a plea, almost a dare. Fallon, getting angrier by the second, pressed both palms to the table and hissed, Who do you think you are? She stared him down. I'm the only one in here who isn't pretending. That was when the shift happened. Fallon's face went pale, then red. He started pacing, muttering to Dwyer about performance and victim act, but everyone could see who was on display. The silence wasn't hers, Anna Maria, it was his, hollow and raw. Dwyer slipped out, went to check the system for a file, but all he found was a blank entry with the note. Observe, do not interrupt. Not normal protocol. Not local authority. Back inside, Fallon was losing it. He unzipped the leather case, expecting some cheap fake badge, but what he found made his hands shocky. A command-level credential, real as it gets, silver embossed with a code only someone way above his pay grade could get. He tried to bluff it off, called it a fake, waved it at Dwyer when he came back, but Dwyer just looked at the serial, then at her, and said nothing. He'd seen those before, and they weren't for show. She stood up, still bleeding, and said, I was sent under a federal security directive. No file for your system to find. But now your name's in it. Her voice, just above a whisper, landed like a verdict. Fallon sputtered, tried to threaten, but the command phone rang right then. Dwyer handed it over. The voice on the other, in no introduction, just called her Chief Lawson. She confirmed control, said, No intervention needed. That was it. No drama, just finality. After that, Fallon was told to turn in his badge and gun. Suspension without review, ordered from the top. He left through the side door, not even in uniform. Word spread like wildfire. Old cases reopened. Dwyer handed over a letter admitting he'd failed to act, but she told him, betrayal is knowing something is wrong and staying silent. She didn't shame him. She gave him the file and signed and told him the choice was his. Some people started showing up with old files, faded photos, things that had been hidden for years. For the first time, silence wasn't safety. It was a mark. There's a mirror in the new command office now, no frame, just glass. Someone wrote at the bottom with correction fluid, I once looked away. Nobody cleaned it. Every officer who walked past saw it and had to wonder, have I ever looked away when it mattered? You want to know what justice looks like? It's not a statue or a press conference or some hero speech. It's a room full of people finally refusing to look away, even when it's easier. So, what would you do if you saw it happen? Would you speak, or would you turn away and hope no one noticed? In the end, silence is a choice, and what you do next is what tells your story.